The 1980s Franciscan priest murders refer to a series of tragic events involving the violent deaths of several Franciscan priests, primarily in Central and South America, during the tumultuous 1980s. These murders were not isolated incidents. Rather, they were symptomatic of the larger political and social upheavals that characterized the region during this era. The victims, often outspoken advocates for human rights and social justice, were targeted by authoritarian regimes and military dictatorships threatened by their influence and support for marginalized communities. The significance of these murders lies in their illustration of the brutal repression faced by religious figures who dared to speak out against oppressive governments. The killings served as stark reminders of the dangers faced by those who stood on the side of the poor and disenfranchised, aligning the church's mission with the socio-political struggles of the time. This period highlighted a critical intersection between faith and politics, where ideological battles were fought not just in government offices or battlefields, but in churches and communities, often with lethal consequences. For example, in El Salvador, the murder of Father Rutilio Grande in 1977, who, though murdered earlier, set a precedent for the violence against clergy, and later, the assassination of Archbishop Oscar Romero in 1980, underscored the deadly risks faced by religious leaders. Grande, a Jesuit priest, worked tirelessly for social justice, advocating for peasants' rights and denouncing the injustices they faced. Romero, influenced by Grande's murder, became an ardent critic of the government's repressive tactics, ultimately leading to his assassination while celebrating Mass. These events galvanized international attention and are poignant illustrations of the intersection of faith and politics. Opinions on these murders often highlight the courage and moral conviction of the priests, while simultaneously criticizing the systemic violence that allowed for such tragedies. Supporters argue that these individuals were martyrs for their cause, emphasizing the profound impact of their sacrifice on human rights advocacy. Conversely, some challenge the church's involvement in political matters, suggesting that such engagement can blur the lines between spiritual and temporal authority, potentially politicizing religious institutions. These murders connect deeply with other aspects of the region's history, influencing the broader narrative of liberation theology, a movement within the Catholic Church advocating for social justice and aligning with the poor. The deaths of these priests illuminated the severe consequences of challenging authoritarian power, forcing international observers to confront the complex realities of geopolitical interests and ethical responsibilities. Ultimately, this era underscored the profound impact that faith-driven activism can have on political and social change, reverberating through history as a testament to the power of standing firmly for justice, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. The historical background and context of the 1980s. Franciscan priest murders serves as a crucial foundation for understanding the complex socio-political and religious dynamics that surrounded these tragic events. This concept refers to the examination of the time period's key elements, which include the political unrest in Latin America during the Cold War, the role of the Catholic Church in advocating for social justice, and the broader implications of religious persecution. The significance of this point lies in its ability to shed light on why such heinous crimes occurred against members of a religious order known for their commitment to peace and humanitarian efforts. One illustrative example is the impact of liberation theology in the region, which encouraged clergy to actively engage in social issues and champion the rights of the poor and marginalized. This theological movement, however, was viewed with suspicion by authoritarian regimes, who saw it as a threat to their power. The murder of priests, including notable figures like Oscar Romero in El Salvador, underscores the dangerous intersection of faith and politics. Another example is the intervention of foreign powers, particularly the United States, which often supported dictatorial governments in their fight against communism. The youth involvement exacerbated local conflicts, creating an environment where violence against clergy was not only possible, but, in some instances, tacitly endorsed. The murder of U.S. missionaries, including Franciscans, in this era reflects the perilous reality that religious figures faced amidst geopolitical struggles. Supporters of the clergy's involvement in social issues argue that it was a moral imperative for the church to stand up against oppression and injustice. They view the martyred priests as heroes who gave their lives for a nobler cause. However, this perspective is not without its controversies. Critics argue that the church's active role in political matters blurred the line between religious and secular responsibilities, potentially endangering clergy members. The historical background not only connects to the Franciscan priest murders through the context in which these murders occurred, but also influences how the church subsequently approached its mission in conflict-ridden areas. This period led to introspection within the church regarding its role in social activism and the potential risks involved. In summary, understanding the historical background and context of the 1980s is essential to grasp the full narrative of the Franciscan priest murders. It highlights the intricate tapestry of faith, politics, and power, offering valuable insights into the challenges faced by religious figures in times of turmoil. The heading Key Figures and Main Events centers around the pivotal individuals and occurrences that define the story of the 1980s Franciscan priest murders. This period was marked by the tragic killings of several clergy members in Central and South America, who were targeted due to their outspoken advocacy for social justice and human rights amid turbulent political climates. These events highlight the tension between religious missions and authoritarian regimes during the Cold War era, underscoring the broader socio-political dynamics at play. The significance of identifying key figures and events lies in understanding the courage of those who risked their lives to stand against oppressive regimes. Figures like Archbishop Oscar Romero of El Salvador, who was assassinated in 1980 while celebrating Mass, became symbols of resistance and martyrdom. His murder, ordered by far-right death squads, exemplifies the deadly consequences faced by clergy who dared to oppose governmental abuses. Another significant figure is Ita Ford, an American Maryknoll sister who, along with 3 other missionaries, was brutally murdered in El Salvador. Their deaths drew international attention and highlighted the extreme dangers faced by religious leaders during this time. Real-world applications of understanding these events include examining how religious figures have historically played pivotal roles in advocating for human rights and how their sacrifices have inspired subsequent movements for social justice. Additionally, these events have influenced the Catholic Church's approach to liberation theology, a movement that sought to address the plight of the poor through a Christian lens. Opinions supporting the significance of these key figures often emphasize their prophetic courage and the enduring impact of their work on global human rights advocacy. However, challenges to these perspectives include controversies surrounding liberation theology itself, which has been criticized by some within the church and political conservatives as promoting Marxist ideology. Critics argue that the alliance between religious figures and political activism can blur the lines of spiritual mission. These key figures and events are interconnected with the broader narrative of the Church's evolving role in political and social spheres. The Franciscan priest murders serve as a poignant reminder of the potential cost of speaking truth to power and reinforce the Church's ongoing struggle between spiritual guidance and political engagement. Understanding these elements provides a nuanced view of the complexities surrounding the Church's involvement in socio-political issues during a period marked by violent conflict and upheaval. The investigation and legal proceedings of the 1980s Franciscan priest murders constitute a critical phase in the unraveling of a series of crimes that shook communities and challenged the justice system. At its core, this concept encompasses the systematic process of identifying the perpetrators, gathering evidence, and navigating the legal framework to achieve justice for the victims. This phase is significant as it reflects society's response to grievous acts against individuals who were considered moral custodians, thereby influencing public perception and policy regarding religious figures involved in criminal acts. One notable example is the murder of Father Ronaldo Rivera in New Mexico in 1982. The investigation into his death highlighted the challenges law enforcement faced, including limited forensic technology of the time and the need for collaboration across jurisdictions. Another instance is the murder of Father Patrick Heslin in California, where the investigative process involved community mobilization and detailed scrutiny of suspects, ultimately leading to a controversial legal battle. These cases underscore the importance of thorough and unbiased investigations, emphasizing how justice must be pursued without regard to the social status of the victims or potential suspects. Opinions supporting stringent investigation practices suggest that these proceedings help restore public faith in the integrity of both the church and legal institutions. Moreover, it emphasizes the need to protect vulnerable populations and uphold justice irrespective of affiliations. However, Potential challenges arise from the inherent complexity of such investigations. The clerical status of the victims often leads to heightened media scrutiny and public pressure, potentially complicating proceedings. Additionally, controversies may emerge when legal outcomes appear unsatisfactory or when investigatory methods are questioned, as was seen in trial outcomes that led to public dissatisfaction or skepticism about judicial fairness. The investigation and legal proceedings surrounding these murders connect intrinsically with broader themes of accountability and moral responsibility. They influence discussions about how societies guard against abuses within religious institutions and highlight the need for reforms that ensure transparency and justice. Moreover, they impact community relations by either fostering a sense of closure and justice or perpetuating distrust and division, depending on the perceived efficacy and fairness of the legal process. Ultimately, this phase serves as a testament to the complex intersection of faith, justice, and societal values, shaping ongoing dialogues about the role of religious figures and institutions in public life.